In a quiet town nestled in the rolling hills, where the morning mist clung to the trees and the scent of fresh earth lingered in the air, a boy named James Walker grew up in a modest home. His father, Robert Walker, worked as a school teacher, and his mother, Margaret Walker, was a dedicated homemaker. They weren't wealthy, but their home was filled with love, laughter, and dreams for their only son. Robert would rise early every morning, sitting by the dim light of a desk lamp, grading papers to earn a little extra money. Each day, before leaving for school, he would hold James's small hands and say, "Education is your greatest asset, son. It will take you places I could never go." Margaret, despite managing the household on a tight budget, made sure James never felt their financial struggles. She mended his school uniforms herself, packed his lunch with whatever they could afford, and told him stories of great leaders at bedtime, instilling in him a sense of ambition and purpose. James, a curious and bright boy, often overheard his parents whispering late into the night. At the time, he didn't understand, but they were discussing how to manage his school fees, how to cut back on expenses to save for his future. Robert sometimes skipped meals, pretending he wasn't hungry, so James could have enough to eat. Margaret even sold her precious heirloom jewelry to ensure he had the books he needed for his college entrance exams. When James was accepted into a prestigious college in the city, it was the proudest moment of their lives. Robert borrowed money from friends, and Margaret took on extra work as a seamstress to pay for the hostel fees. The night before James left, Margaret sat by his bedside, gently running her fingers through his hair as he slept. She had always wanted to keep him close, but she knew he had to fly. "Take care of yourself, son," she whispered, packing homemade snacks into his suitcase, masking her tears with a smile. The city was a whirlwind of ambition, and James quickly became swept up in it. He studied hard, took on part-time jobs, and soon climbed the corporate ladder. His visits home became less frequent. At first, he called every day, then once a week, then once a month. "He's probably busy," Margaret would say, trying to comfort Robert, even as her voice trembled with longing. Holidays came and went, with their home growing quieter and emptier in James's absence. Robert, now older and frail, still walked to the mailbox every day, hoping for a letter, but all they received were wire transfers. Money they didn't need. What they truly yearned for was their son's presence. One day, James received a call from his childhood friend, Tom. "Your father collapsed while at the park today. He's fine now, but, James, they miss you." James sat in stunned silence. He had given them financial security, but in doing so, he had taken away their happiness. The next morning, he boarded the first train back to his hometown. When he arrived, he found his mother standing in the doorway, looking more fragile than he remembered. His father sat in a chair, staring blankly at the horizon. "Mom," said. His voice cracked with emotion. Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. "You've come home, son. That's all that matters." James fell to his knees, taking his father's hands in his. "Forgive me, Dad. I thought success meant making a name for myself, but I forgot that my first identity was being your son. Robert placed a frail hand on his shoulder. A house without a sun is just walls and a roof, son. But today, you've made it a home again. From that day forward, James promised never to let distance come between them again. He set up a small office in his hometown, returning home every weekend. He rediscovered the simple joys, sipping tea with his father, listening to his mother's old songs, and walking through the fields he once played in. Years later, as a successful businessman, James stood before a large audience, his heart full of gratitude. He concluded his speech with words that were deeply personal. And in that moment, he understood: no trophy, no accomplishment, no fortune could ever compare to the warmth of his mother's embrace or the wisdom in his father's eyes. Have you ever realized that success means nothing without the support of the ones you love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's learn some words from this story. Frail. Meaning, weak. Example: Robert, frail, placed a hand on James. Sacrifice. Meaning, giving up something valuable. Example: Margaret sacrificed her jewelry. Longing. Meaning, strong desire. Example: she spoke with longing for him. Accomplishment. Meaning, achievement. Example: no accomplishment surpassed family. Gratitude. Meaning, thankfulness. Example: James felt deep gratitude. Reconciliation. Meaning, making up. Example: James sought reconciliation. Frustration. Meaning, feeling upset. Example: James felt frustration with work. Trembled. Meaning, shook. Example: her hands trembled as she packed. Whispering. Meaning, speaking softly. Example: they were whispering about money. Redeemed. Meaning, made up for. Example: James redeemed himself by returning. Subscribe to Fairy Tale Spell for more stories that inspire growth, mindfulness, and self-discovery. Let's create a world where everyone learns to celebrate their own light.